City of Fayetteville podcast channel, Radio Fayetteville hosts the Fayetteville 411, an informative and timely show available on iTunes.
This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning. I'm Brian Pierce, Vice President of Fayetteville Valley Health System, and currently serving as the Chair of the Greater Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors. We hope you enjoy the virtual format today of this year's presentation of the State of Community. It is our great honor to have each of you join us today virtually. We would especially like to recognize our sponsors. This event would not have been possible without them. Thank you to our presenting sponsors, Fayetteville Valley Health System and the North Carolina Counts Coalition. Thank you also to the City of Fayetteville, particularly for allowing us to use the council chambers and the talent of their corporate communications team to help us broadcast this event virtually today. Also sponsoring this event is the Fayetteville Cumberland Convention and Visitors Bureau. We would also like to recognize our 2020 media partners, Array Publishing and Marketing, Beasley Media Group, Cumulus Broadcasting, the Fayetteville Observer, Up and Coming Weekly, WCKB Radio, and our 2020 annual sponsors, Caldwell Banker Advantage, H&H Homes, and Jerome Scott, the Insurance Guy. I would now invite each of you to stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. The State of Our Community program today is especially meaningful this year as we hear from our community leaders about how they have faced the uncertainties dealing with COVID as this affected our health and economy, and also at a time where social justice is on the top of everybody's mind. We would also like to learn how our municipalities are addressing these and helping us to promote equality and inclusion. At the end of our presentations today, we will have a Q&A portion in which we, for those of you who have registered for the event, if you have any questions for our guest, please add them to the chat feature located in the top right of your screen, and we will try to get as many questions as time will allow for at the end. We will begin our presentation today with our presenting sponsor, the North Carolina Counts Coalition. Filling in for the Executive Director, Stacy Carlos, will be Nakia Smith, Community Engagement Coordinator for Cumberland County.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nakia Smith, and as he said, I am with North Carolina Counts Coalition, and we are a nonpartisan nonprofit that does census work here in the state, as well as here in Cumberland County. The census, we are behind. The Census Bureau has determined that they are or have met their goal of 99.9%. However, it's self-response that we need to be most concerned with. Self-response is when individuals can give their account of what's going on in their household. And that's super important because we want to know exactly what's going on in their household, how many persons are there. Non-response follow-up, or the Census Bureau has determined that units, and we want to determine people. Right now, North Carolina is at 63.2%, and that is under the national average. Cumberland County has 30 counties that have reached their 2010 goal. Cumberland County is not one of those counties. We are 2% under at 62.4%, and we were at 64.7% in 2010. So we want to get our self-response numbers up, and this has been due to COVID for various reasons, but we definitely want to get those numbers up so that we can get the resources we need in our community. So you know, there's only 10 questions on the census. Your address, phone number, the count of each person that's in your home, name, gender, age and date of birth, race, Hispanic, Latino, or of Spanish origin, whether someone lives somewhere else, and your relationship to the individual filling out the census. That's it. 10 questions, less than 10 minutes, can get us resources for the next 10 years. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Marshall Fairclough, Chairman for the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners.
Thank you, Brian, and hello, everyone. It has been my honor and pleasure and privilege for the past year to have been the chairman of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners. I'd like to also mention my fellow commissioners. We have Glenn Adams, vice chairman, Michael Booth, Jeanette Council, Charles Evans, Jimmy Keefe, and Larry Lancaster. A year ago, none of us even imagined that we'd be dealing with the pandemic that has altered in many aspects of our lives and has deepened our appreciation for our healthcare workers and others who have been on the front lines of this battle. We have a short video that celebrates the heroes who live and work here, the men and women in our health and human services agencies, emergency department, public safety, and other areas, including our voting precincts, which you will soon see. These public servants are working together for our community.
The COVID-19 pandemic has drastically changed our lives this year. We have a new appreciation for the role that public health plays in our community. These health workers are frontline heroes who are operating testing sites, conducting contact tracing, and helping educate the public about the virus.
And the situation is rapidly evolving, so community...
Since March, we have been under a state of emergency. Our emergency management officials have worked quietly behind the scenes, coordinating shipments and distribution of supplies and equipment, assisting in establishing testing locations and food distribution sites. Across our community and in our county departments, individuals have made face masks for coworkers to help slow the spread of the virus. County operations adapted to working virtually and assisting citizens by phone and email or by scheduling one-on-one appointments. You can use curbside pickup for library items and adopt a pet by appointment. Protective barriers are being installed in our facilities, and social distancing markers show us where to sit or stand. Signs remind us to wear face masks. The county is helping small businesses impacted by COVID-19 with grants. Hundreds of individuals have answered the call to work at our voting sites starting October 15th for early voting and on November 3rd, Election Day. Our Board of Elections will be following state guidelines to protect the health and safety of our precinct workers and our voters. As we adjust to this new normal, we encourage everyone to remember the 3 W's. Wear a face mask, wait at least 6 feet apart, and wash your hands or use hand sanitizer. And in Cumberland County, we have a 4th W. Work together to fight COVID.
We salute these heroes. In March, after the World Health Organization declared COVID-19 a pandemic and the governor issued a state of emergency, the Board of Commissioners declared a state of emergency for Cumberland County. During a public health emergency is the county's public health director who takes the lead in our local efforts. Dr. Jennifer Green, who started as our health director on November 18th, arrived just in time to lead the county's response to COVID-19. The first 2 positive cases in Cumberland County were reported on March 19th, And since then, we've had 6,029 positive tests. When you hear that number, you got to consider that it represents an even larger number of contact tracing investigations that have taken place. Unfortunately, we've had 82 COVID-related deaths in Cumberland County. Our health department has conducted more than 83,398 tests in total. Overall, our rate is 6.3% for positive cases, which is much better than a few weeks ago, but we're working to get it down below 5%. Our local public health department and hospital officials at Cape Fear Valley Health System are doing a magnificent job. I can remember back in March, the CEO of Cape Fear Valley, Mike Nagowski, and I were sitting in his car in my driveway doing what-if scenarios. How many cases can possibly come from 330,000 citizens? And we were looking at over 3,000 cases just coming through the doors at Cape Fear Valley as a possibility. And the hospital began to ramp up to serve those numbers. And you remember seeing white tents in the parking lot. Well, fortunately, we didn't get those numbers. And it is a tribute to the emergency and the health department employees of Cumberland County that the citizens stepped up and they wore their masks. They did their social distancing. And we've not had an overrun at our hospital facilities at Cape Fear Valley. And we are very thankful for that. And we thank the Cumberland County citizens for keeping that status quo. We think we will get through this as a result. But in addition to managing the testing sites and conducting all the contract tracing investigations and keeping the public informed, the health department has maintained operating hours for their clinics and launched a new initiative in partnership with the Fort Bragg Department of Public Health and UNC Greensboro. The program is part of the Healthiest Cities and Counties Challenge and is designed to reduce food insecurity and change the food access systems in Cumberland County and Fort Bragg. Our Emergency Services Department is working hand in hand with the Health Department on our COVID response, including assisting with support for mass testing sites and coordinating delivery of resources throughout the county. It's not all been about COVID, even though that has been at the forefront of everybody's life for the past 6, 7 months, however long it's been. Like all organizations, Cumberland County government has adjusted to working in a virtual environment. Our departments are assisting citizens by phone and email or scheduling one-on-one appointments. The Board of Commissioners has resumed meeting in person, with the 7 of us being socially distanced. We have taken several actions to assist the community through the CARES Act federal funding. One, back in May, the Board of Commissioners established a small business resiliency grant program through the community development to assist qualified local businesses. As part of this grant cycle, 22 local businesses so far have received these $10,000 awards. And in the video earlier, you saw us presenting those big old checks that we told them, don't try to go cash it. We'll find you a smaller one somewhere. The board also approved $500,000 for the 20 volunteer fire departments to purchase personal protective equipment, PPE. Defibrillators and disinfecting misting sprayers. We've also allocated $250,000 for nonprofit community-based organizations to set up virtual learning centers for school-aged children. It's not all been about COVID, as I said. In August, the Fayetteville Cumberland County Economic Development Corporation announced that Danson's, a leading manufacturer of barbecue pellet grills and products, had selected Cumberland County as the location for new distribution and customer service facilities at 800 Technology Drive. That will result in the creation of 118 full-time jobs and $10 million immediate investment and growing to about $27 million investment over the years. Campbell Soup Supply Company plans to have added another 100 employees to their roles by the end of the year at their new distribution center in the Cedar Creek Business Center. Also, as a result of some of the racial unrest in our community, in June, the board took a stance against racial injustice. As chairman, I looked around and I didn't see any historical buildings that were controversial. I didn't see any statues that were controversial, but I had to ask, are we vulnerable to a challenge on racial injustice? What is going on within our operations that could be questioned? So we, the board, set up our diversity, equity, and inclusion committee to look within our organization and find any cases where we might be vulnerable and be able to explain ourselves or take whatever actions we needed to make sure that we are carrying out the spirit of racial justice and equality, because that's what Cumberland County is about. We pride ourselves in that. One-stop voting opens on October 15th, so be sure that you get out and vote, and remember your 3 W's: wear your mask, wait 6 feet apart, and wash your hands. Since I mentioned Cape Fear Valley earlier, I wanted to give you a few statistics. There are a lot of things going on there. Most people know that all 7 commissioners are on the board of Cape Fear Valley. And most of you know by now of the residency program that we have opened over the last 3 years. We are in this year of 2020, we began our 3rd year residency program, so we had residents in all 3 years. And this past year, we received 5,460 applications from not just across the country, but worldwide. We interviewed 850 candidates. We have total residency positions right now, and again, we're ramping up, but we have total residency positions in 2020, 180. We have filled 140 of those. And those residency programs are in internal medicine, general surgery, OBGYN, psychiatry, emergency medicine, transitional, cardiology. For 2021, we have a podiatry residency with 12 positions approved. We have a pediatric psychiatry residency program with 4 positions, and there are more in the works, and they'll be added over the coming years. We have expanded our clinical bed capacity. We've added a 10-bed unit for pediatric psychiatry beds. We have a 20-bed unit that has been added as a medical unit to take regional referrals. We are a regional medical center and a level 3 trauma center, and we get referrals from the surrounding hospitals. We also are now a research facility. We have undertaken 45 clinical trials that have been enrolled or completed to date. 8 of those are COVID related. And there are 500 people enrolled in the COVID clinical trials that are going on right now. 6 of those are inpatient, 2 are outpatient trials. To date, we've only had 691 COVID-related positive cases that have been hospitalized at Cape Fear Valley. We're grateful for that because we plan for over 3,000. And that's just a little bit about what's going on in the county. We want to assure you that we are working hard to meet our state mandated services plus the other local services that we can provide. And it is our pleasure to serve Cumberland County in this manner. And I thank you very much. I thank the city of Fayetteville and their fine audio-visual department for these facilities and their fine ability to do that. And at this time, I would like to bid you good day and enjoy your day.
Thank you, Chairman Fairclough, for bringing us some of the things that the Cumberland County Commissioners are doing for our community. Next, I'd like to invite Mitch Colvin, Mayor of the City of Fayetteville, to give us his remarks.
Good morning. Thank you so much to the Greater Fayetteville Chamber for this opportunity to speak with you today. Certainly I'm grateful for the technology and the great job that our corporate communications, Mr. Arata and his team are doing to make sure that we're able to address our community in a safe way in the midst of this coronavirus pandemic. I'd also like to acknowledge our counterparts, Chairman Fairclough, Mayor Warner and Dobbins in their absence, and their Mayor Pro Tems who will fill in for them today. Certainly I would like to welcome you to the Fayetteville City Council chambers, and also our new Garrison commander there. Well, we certainly can agree on one thing, that 2020 has been quite a year. But even in a year of uncertainty and great challenge, we find great opportunity. Opportunity to show our compassion for our fellow man when faced with confronting hate and racial injustices. The opportunity to show our resolve as a community when faced with economic adversity and challenge as we continue to bounce back. The opportunity to show our creativity and innovation when our businesses have been faced with challenge and they have had to reinvent and readjust just to make it work and to pay the bills. Indeed, 2020 has dealt us a trifecta of challenges to include the pandemic, racial injustices, and the economic downturns that we've experienced. You know, shortly after coming into this second term, we were just a little less than 90 days in, a little more than 90 days with the new council, when the world was introduced to one of the greatest global pandemics that we've seen in 100 years with COVID-19. Federal, state, and local governments had to quickly adjust and tighten their belts and budgets while providing resources that we needed to keep our citizens safe and protected. I'm proud to say that here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, that Cumberland County, we jumped right in. We formed open lines of communications with coordination between the city, the county, and our health professionals, Dr. Green, Director of Public Health, and Mike Nagowski, CEO of Cape Fear Valley Medical Centers, holding a joint press conference, keeping the public informed and how to slow the spread of COVID-19 in our community. And although we've had over 6,000 cases, as Chairman Fairclough has mentioned, and 82 individuals have lost their lives to this deadly disease, I think we've been extremely blessed compared to other communities our size. And that is because of this great coordination and collaboration between the health and our governmental bodies. The city has made a number of adjustments in response to COVID. In anticipation of the federal and state resources that were to come through the CARES Act, I asked the City Council to form 3 committees who were tasked with identifying programs to help our citizens rebound from COVID-19, from this deadly crisis. We formed a business committee whose job it was to create programs that we could quickly move money out to our local businesses to help them in the midst of this economic downturn. The city partnered with SEED, Center for Economic Empowerment and Development, and assisted small businesses with loans up to $5,000 if you were located in the city of Fayetteville, just to bridge and just keep operating while they waited on other assistance to come through. To date, SEED has issued over 62 loans to small businesses totaling $227,000. And of those loans, 94% of those loans are for minority-owned businesses, with 92% of those being Black or African American or women-owned businesses. And we still have more to come. Grants have been provided to small business owners who employ low-income residents, $10,000 grants to help them stay in business and maintain during these difficult times. And so far, we have approved 41 grants to small businesses. We've paid over $324,000 to 38 businesses, and 114 is still available for qualifying businesses that employ a low to moderate income. Next, we also formed a neighborhood revitalization and vitality committee whose job it was to help our most vulnerable communities with rental and mortgage assistance, child care, and other expenses. So many of our citizens were laid off or furloughed during COVID-19, and to date we have provided loans for up to 363 of our citizens. 90% have been to minorities. Nearly one half of the $465,000 has been distributed, and we have also reloaded this fund with another $700,000 to meet the anticipated demand of those who still need help in our community. Rent, utilities, and mortgage up to $2,000 for individuals who live in our city who qualify. And you can call the 211 referral system for more information. So thus far, the city of Fayetteville has invested over $1.2 million and served over 363 individuals, many of which have been minority. By partnering with urban ministries, connections, and endeavors, we have a substantial wait list, but there are more funds available. And finally, the Homeless and Poverty Committee worked to retool and create programs to help the homeless and those who are living below the poverty line in our community. We have partnered with the Salvation Army and others to give these resources and to provide case management to over 300 individuals on a monthly basis. And the city council has moved with tremendous speed and boldness to invest money necessary to bring a homeless day center into our community that will help with the day-to-day functions to many of our homeless members of this community, to help with job training, or laundry, or showering, and just to find the decent services that many of us may take for granted. And so I commend the city council for making that bold move. And finally, as it relates to race relations, we have formed the internal and external committees. The council has identified these committees who will focus on improving the equitable opportunity for residents to succeed in our community, regardless of their race, sex, creed, color, nationality, or sexual orientation. We want to make sure that our city government is representative of everyone. And formed after the George Floyd's death, the goal was to help address the unrest and calls for change that were happening throughout America. The city's vision stated that we strive to be an attractive, culturally diverse, and inclusive city that is a safe, prosperous, innovative, and unified. And we believe that this city that we describe should be a great place to live for all of us. So the committee's job is to review internally, to look at things like our procurement process, to look at our police department, to make sure that we are being as inclusive and diverse with our policies and procedures, and that all are created fairly and equally. We're also looking at our workforce to make sure that it's reflective of the community that we represent. And so we're looking at our hiring practices and our promotion practices. So the internal committee has taken a deep dive within the organization. Externally, we're looking out into the community at those tough, difficult things, to have tough, difficult conversations that are needed to keep our community on track, to be one of the greatest communities. We're talking about the distribution of the city's resources outside of City Hall to make sure that every neighborhood, every community is important and is resourced appropriately. We're looking at the way in which our community policing, our police department handles community relations and community policing. And so we're having an in-depth conversation about that. And of course, we know the elephant in the room. We're talking about the future and the outcome of the Market House. You know, the Market House has been a part of a discussion in this community for many, many years, and I commend this city council for having the boldness and the courage to talk about it in a very real way about the future of what it means to this community. But in the meantime, we have taken steps. We all can agree that the Market House, because of its uniqueness as being a historical but also hurtful to some in our community, had no business representing the imagery of the city of Fayetteville. And so I commend the city council for removing the Market House imagery from all of the city of Fayetteville related paraphernalia, logos, and representation. And so we're in the process of this transition, and many of you have heard the conversation that this will require substantial investment over time to replace things like our trash can containers with different logos that are more representative and more inclusive. And as we prepare to talk about what's next for the future of the Market House, the external committee plans to have in-depth community discussions with all facets of our community to talk about what our next steps are. But even in the midst of all of that, we've applied and been very fortunate with receiving funding from our state and federal partners. The police department received a $50,000 grant for racial equity training, which we will employ that in the near future. And we have continued as a department to employ those things that have made us a great diverse workforce in law enforcement agency. And certainly we are not perfect where we are, but I think the best days are ahead of us, and we're striving for excellence in that regard. And even in the midst of this pandemic and nationwide racial inequality, we're still doing great things to move this city forward and to serve our citizens. For our budget, we made a promise at the beginning of this term that we would make sure that every staff member of our workforce could afford to live in the city that they work so hard to make great. And so we fulfilled that and gave bonuses even in the midst of this pandemic to every employee that works for the city of Fayetteville, and we'll continue to do that. We delivered a balanced budget without asking the citizens of Fayetteville for any additional dollars in a property tax increase, but had some modest increases or adjustments to our solid waste. And we've improved pay increases for our public safety workers, fire, police, and emergency communication. And the city has allocated $200,000 for racial equity programming, and also $300,000 to take a look through a disparity study about our procurement processes. So we believe that, in conclusion, that although 2020 has presented a year of great challenges, unprecedented challenges, it also creates an opportunity for us to show our greatness in this great city. Again, thank you so much to the Greater Fayetteville Chamber. I believe my time is up. I see Mr. Bryant has begun to give me that cue. But again, what an honor and privilege it is to serve as your mayor in the great city of Fayetteville. God bless you.
Thank you, Mayor Colvin, for those comments about some of the things that Fayetteville and its council are doing for our community. Our next presenter is Colonel Scott Pence, the new Garrison Commander of Fort Bragg.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning. I'm Colonel Scott Pence, the Garrison Commander of Fort Bragg, North Carolina, the home of Airborne and Special Operations. On behalf of General Eric Carrilla, the Senior Commander of Fort Bragg, thank you to the Fayetteville Chamber of Commerce for inviting me here. Thank you, Mayor Colvin, Chairman Fairclough, Mayor Pro Tem Aziz of Spring Lake, and Mayor Warner of Hope Mills for having me. And thank you, Ms. Smith, for the important work you're doing with the census. Some people serve their whole career at Fort Bragg. That's not me. I've served around the world in Fort Lewis, Washington, Dongducheon, Korea, in Fort Benning, Georgia, Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Vicenza, Italy, and Wiesbaden, Germany. All those places have wonderful features, but I can attest from this diverse experience that the community of Fayetteville and the surrounding area is known as the most military-friendly area in the nation. I saw it firsthand when I served here as a battalion commander in the 82nd Airborne Division, and I gained an appreciation for why people love this area so much, and they return again and again. It's not just because of the climate. It's not just because we're 2 hours from the ocean and 2 hours from the mountains. It's because of a constant feeling of support and trust from the surrounding community. That has an underlying effect on everyone's psyche. It provides a measure of calm, safety, and support. The support from the community goes a long way, and I'm here to tell you that's not true of all of our installations in the United States and in the world. That support matters now more than usual. On top of the stresses of an election season, voices for social justice, and the coronavirus, our forces on Fort Bragg also live with the fact that they might deploy to a dangerous place with an ambiguous mission. I know from the 489 days I spent on the Immediate Reaction Force that this takes a toll on people. We learned that this community can help with that. I've kayaked along the streams of Spring Lake. I've enjoyed the local stores in downtown Fayetteville. I visited soldiers and their families at the Cape Fear Regional Medical Center, and I especially enjoy all the multitude of surplus stores on Yadkin Road. And even while we take measures to stop the spread, and we take it very seriously, Fort Bragg remains the preeminent power projection platform on Earth. 54,000 service members and 14,000 DoD civilians are assigned to Fort Bragg. The installation is unique. On it, the most elite forces in the world work just blocks down from the newest soldiers in our Army. And a large amount of them are poised to deploy at a moment's notice anywhere in the world to achieve national objectives. As such, Fort Bragg and this wonderful surrounding area is a strategic support area, listed among the nation's most critical assets. We all play an integral role in supporting that national mission. And because of that, you and this chamber are so important. You are part of it. We in the military also need to understand the stress that our great community is under. This economy is a challenge for small businesses around the country. To help Fayetteville businesses, we provide for you the explosive sounds of freedom every night this week from our training areas, and sometimes very late at night. That's the U.S. Marines, by the way, not us on post there. They're coming down from Camp Lejeune, and they need a place to train, and they're making a lot of noise, and we understand that. With its federal dollars and employees, Fort Bragg continues to generate $18.9 million daily in direct and indirect impact to the region every single day. And annually, Fort Bragg is responsible for $6.9 billion in economic impact to the region. Our base access policies have a positive effect. On a typical day, 68,000 people cross through Fort Bragg gates. Some people describe this as a pool filter. As people transit through the area and happen to get through one of our access gates, they're like bugs floating on the surface of a pond or a pool, and sometimes they get caught. Through our improved database, access control points on Fort Bragg have caught criminals and people with multiple felonies and kept them off the streets of your communities. Last month, Fort Bragg apprehended 6 people with active warrants and turned away and admitted 27 people with felonies into the system. Over the past 4 years, Fort Bragg has taken more than 450 people off the streets, and each year, incident rates have dropped. Fort Bragg's 163,000 acres are for training and readiness in support of this great nation. They're for maneuver training, live fire training, and innovation. George S. Patton said that an ounce of sweat will save a gallon of blood. We sweat our ounces here so we don't have to lose our gallons of blood in some God-forsaken place. But the training areas are also a refuge. The Fort Bragg leadership has a record of environmental stewardship. Besides just the red-cockaded woodpecker, Fort Bragg is protecting the entire longleaf pine wiregrass ecosystem. This month, Fort Bragg was selected to win the 2020 Secretary of the Army Energy and Water Management Award. Efficiency projects resulted in an annual energy savings of $391,000 this year by reducing energy expenditures. The team will receive a trophy and a certificate signed by the Secretary of the Army. They've also set the standard for energy resilience. As I mentioned earlier, Fort Bragg is a critical power projection platform and a strategic support area. In large-scale combat operations against a determined adversary, that makes Fort Bragg a target. Last year, after Colonel Reed spoke to you at this forum, Fort Bragg launched an energy resilience exercise. They literally pulled the plug on the power on post. The lights went out, and guess what? Fort Bragg continued on. There were minor bugs that they captured and corrected, but the bottom line is Fort Bragg demonstrated that it is resilient to energy sabotage and disruption. Therefore, it will continue to support the nation's efforts, even when under attack. The senior commander has tasked me to focus on installation appearance. The intent is to make soldiers and families even more proud to serve on this installation. Toward that end, you'll see an expansion of pothole repairs, better signage, and street repainting. We've also adjusted contracts and enhanced ground maintenance. We're also educating our community to work on their work orders in community areas and make their space even better. This year will be a year of building and renovations. Public Works for fiscal year 2020 approved over $76 million for 157 projects on Fort Bragg. Military construction projects totals $100 million for 113 projects. Funds include procurement of much-needed equipment for the roads and the grounds mission, and also 3 additional environmental projects. If you're visiting Fort Bragg, you should know about a new program out there called Digital Garrison. It's a mobile app. It's like having a living phone book of everything you need on the installation. Besides the latest Fort Bragg phone numbers, it has office hours, which are changing daily as the HPCon level changes in response to coronavirus. It has gate hours, and it even maps to locations that you want to get to. You can download it today where you get your mobile apps, Digital Garrison. As you might know, Fort Bragg is currently on HPCon Charlie. That's Health Protection Condition Charlie. As such, the Dodea Fort Bragg schools are staying in remote schooling. If rates on base and in the surrounding area lower, the senior commander will lower this health protection condition to Bravo and will expand the services on Fort Bragg, and Dodea Fort Bragg schools will open. Also, many of our services are limited right now. Restaurants on Fort Bragg are open, but indoor dining is closed. In closing, we are part of this great community. We are integrated with this community like no other. Thank you for your attention today, and especially for your continued support of Fort Bragg. And on behalf of the soldiers, families, and DA civilians of Fort Bragg, thank you for remaining the nation's #1 military community. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Pence. And living in this community most of my life, I tell you, I sleep worse when I go away and it's quiet. So we're all used to the helicopters and the artillery. I would now like to welcome Mayor Jackie Warner from the town of Hope Mills for her comments.
Thank you for this opportunity today, and also I'd like to thank Fort Bragg, because we have become, I don't want to say the bedroom community, because we've increased our number of veterans that live in Hope Mills, and we have so many active duty that we really appreciate. And I'll be honest with you, it's nice to have the Marines here too. We feel very safe in Hope Mills, so just know that even the noise has not been a problem for us. Today I come to bring to you exciting times in Hope Mills. Even in the midst of all the things that have been happening, we've used themes like Hope Mills proud, Hope Mills strong through the times that we've gotten through. We've had hurricane damage. You just name the things that have occurred in Hope Mills that have really made our population not only stronger, but now we believe in Hope Mills, because we've seen ourselves move through all these different types of things that even the COVID now we've managed to get through. 2020 started off in Hope Mills with a bang. We had, of course, right after a new election, we were forming some new committees, a balanced budget, a great audit report, applying for a PARTIF grant. So many things were on the right track. We're meeting and planning with different ways that we can improve our Main Street revitalization, working with DOT, and then all of a sudden things had to slow down. And what happened with our slowdown was that we just became more focused. And the reason why we became more focused is we had time to stop and think. We had time to work together. We had time to do some things that we probably had not been able to do in previous times. And one of those was to take a look at what our committees were doing, take a look at what our staff was doing. We've actually come up with plans of ways that our staff can work from home. We've made opportunities for our families that have children that they can't go to school. The kids can't go to school, and so moms or dads need to be flexible enough that they can work with those families. And we've been, in Hope Mills, we've got 3 high schools. We've got a lot of elementary schools. We've tried to make things happen at our Parks and Rec building. We've tried to make things available for virtual learning. Our police department, in these times when we're talking about all the things that have occurred, and especially those things that other communities have had to face. Hope Mills, again, I'm not only very proud of our police department, but our police department, even though it's not the largest, it's not the highest paid, I have to say they've got the biggest hearts and the biggest willingness to do what is necessary, not only to make us safe, but just, and to work with all peoples, and to make sure that we keep not only Hope Mills safe, but we also make sure that people are welcome in Hope Mills. So I have to commend our police department, because when things were happening all around us, they were taking charge in Hope Mills, and they were doing a great job. And we did have protesters in Hope Mills. We did have things happen in Hope Mills, but we had them done very calmly and without violence. And then we've had a unique situation in where our police actually worked with them. We learned from this. Our economic development in Hope Mills is booming, even with what's happening with the COVID and not being able to get out. We've got, if you just check one of our agendas, you'd be surprised at the number of people that are opportunity seeking in Hope Mills. We're building homes, we're opening new businesses. It's in these times, it has been rewarding as mayor to know that the interest in Hope Mills is all for good things. And we've been very fortunate in the developers that are coming. They're working with us to make sure they meet our standards. As we're talking about our veterans, and I think that's very important to Hope Mills, our Veterans Affairs Committee has joined with the local VFWs and American Legions, and we've got a strong unit now. They're meeting once a month. They had a dinner last month just to bring together the different organizations, even those on the outskirts of Hope Mills, to identify what do our veterans need and what can we as a community do to make sure that not only do we assist them in making them welcome in Hope Mills, but we assist them in their times of needs. And also looking at the spouses and those that when times like now, when there is strong need for either funding, food, or whatever, that we can step up to the plate. So our Veterans Affairs Committee has worked strongly during these times. We've also found that, and this is something that every time, somebody mentions the lake and the dam in Hope Mills, we've had, again, struggles sometimes because people worry that the dam's going to fail. But what we have found during these times, especially during these times, we have had kayaks and canoes and fishing on that lake. The lake has stayed busy. We had to extend the opportunity for the lake to stay open. So recreation in Hope Mills has made the difference for our people also. We've also found that our Hope Mills former golf course, which is now called our Greenway, it is staying busy and active. We've had cross-country meets. We've had different types of runs up there. Again, opportunities for people to be outside and not have to stay inside. Our most vulnerable population, which I know is close to Mayor Colvin's heart and mine also, having been on the Tier 1 committee and trying to do things to make sure that we address the needs and also address poverty and other types of things in our community. What we've looked at and we've set up, it's going to be called our Tier 1 Most Vulnerable Population Committee, and we've set it up so that we can start addressing ways that possibly we as a community in Hope Mills can come up with ways to identify needs of our seniors, our veterans, our youth, all populations, but most importantly, those that need the most help, and try to come up with ways we can partner with our county commissioners, with local people that will be willing to help us fund something so that we can provide those necessary resources. Again, we partnered with FTCC this past weekend. We had our chef out there. He cooked stews and soups and served the homeless, and it was nice to know that we had a partner with FTCC in Hope Mills. We try to do those things that we can bring other parts of Cumberland County together to make sure that we're functioning as one big community. The only other thing that I would bring to the table would be that we in Hope Mills have a Mayor's Youth Leadership Committee that is working on making sure that Hope Mills stays beautiful. It's got a litter initiative, and we've also, Mayor Pro Tem Dr. McCrae has come forward with a group called the Prime Movers, very similar to the Millennial Group in Fayetteville. And what we're trying to do is, again, and not only address the youth, but also come up with ways that that population that we're seeing is growing in Hope Mills, that we can come up and use their ideas, because they're the ones that are going to inherit what's happening in Hope Mills in the years to come. And again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Again, I appreciate the fact that we can come together, even in this means, but that we can share our ideas and also share our concerns for our county and our state. Also, I want to mention our Mayor's Coalition. We've met during this time, and we continue to work on those things that will help all small communities in Cumberland County.
Thank you, Mayor Warner, for those comments from Hope Mills. At this time, we'd like to welcome from the town of Spring Lake, Mayor Pro Tem Taimur Aziz.
Hey, Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank the City of Fayetteville and everyone whose hard work has made this State of the Community presentation possible today, and for inviting us to be part of it. Let me introduce myself. I am Alderman and Mayor Pro Tem Tamor Aziz from the town of Spring Lake. I am here today on behalf of the town of Spring Lake, our residents, and our mayor, the Honorable Larry Dobbins, who wishes he could be here with us, but unfortunately he has a prior commitment. So he has left me this statement that I will read on his behalf. As many of you know, Spring Lake is nestled in amongst many communities, including Fort Bragg, Fayetteville, and Harnett County, and our future is linked very much with our neighbors, so we wish everyone very well. So economic development for Spring Lake is a constantly moving machine. While we have seen loss, we have also seen growth. When plagued by 2 natural disasters in a very short period of time, we faced the loss of a few very prominent businesses in Spring Lake, but we have managed to stand strong and pull together, and in the long run, we have all persevered. At the end of the day, we know that we still have many viable resources that are key for any potential new business to thrive here, such as available land, new shopping centers, incentives from the town of Spring Lake, and an employable workforce. Within the last year or so, Spring Lake has continued to open its doors to many new enterprises in our area. Some franchises, such as the Quality Inn, will soon be getting ready to open their newly purchased and renovated hotel just as you come off of Fort Bragg and are entering Spring Lake. As well as being another welcomed addition to our business sector, it is creating new jobs and providing additional space for our visitors to Fort Bragg, our business professionals, and anyone who may be traveling to our area. It also opens the doors for even more business opportunity and growth in and around their location on our newly configured roadways. We have also welcomed our own location of Window World on Bragg Boulevard, while they boast that they are one of the largest exterior remodeling businesses in America. We are in the process of welcoming our second Circle K convenience store chain that is being finished and will open for business very soon. We have already welcomed a newly constructed Circle K that is operating just as you enter into Spring Lake. So now there will be one on the outskirts of town that will cater to the personal vehicles as well as the big rigs and trucks that make frequent use of our roadways between Fayetteville and Sanford. The town of Spring Lake is in the process of constructing a second and much-needed fire station on Highway 210, close to the Harnett County border, that will help better serve the communities and the neighborhoods and businesses that call that side of the town home. After the devastation and the flooding that occurred during Hurricane Florence, the need for emergency services was imminent at that time. Being several minutes from the main fire station, and while every second counts in an emergency, it was deemed a necessity by the town officials and the Board of Aldermen to have another location for a fire station. Construction is ongoing, and we are very excited to be able to announce when it is finished and open for business. Mom and pop businesses. Mom and pop businesses are the backbone of Spring Lake, and we have had the pleasure of welcoming many new independently owned and operated businesses to Spring Lake, such as Soldier Nails and Spa and Nails, City Dogs Hot Dog and Lunch Stand, Emerald Uniforms that caters to the medical and culinary fields, the Agape Coffee Shop that offers a laid-back, cozy atmosphere, and the Tire House. Spring Lake is also home to several amateur boxing shows throughout the year that are held at our recreation and community center that draws local and faraway talents along with their coaches and fans. The owner, a longtime business proprietor in Spring Lake named Mr. Tony Burgess, has a dream to make Spring Lake the amateur boxing capital of the world one day, and Spring Lake will be right there alongside him, cheering him on all the way. We also have a new medical business, Autism Therapeutic Services, christened their newest and their 5th location in Spring Lake and opened their beautiful new office building just off of Bragg Boulevard. They are staffed with medical professionals who specialize in helping families with members on the autism scale, as well as marriage and family counseling. In addition to promoting business opportunities and striving to grow day by day, we are also home to many other everyday amenities that help with our quality of life here in Spring Lake. Our new splash pad in 2019, our FDCC satellite campuses, our public library, and our Spring Lake Senior Center are just a few that we highlight every day. We continue to zone and rezone properties in an effort to attract new industries and developments, and with our roads and infrastructure in place, we have the ability to attract more businesses to Spring Lake. We are also proud to announce that we will be seeing 15 new single-family homes being constructed in Spring Lake just across from our Recreation Department and Senior Center that will be located on Moorhead and Elizabeth Streets near the Town Hall. These houses will provide the opportunity for middle to low-income families to have their own piece of the American dream while becoming homeowners through special programs set in place. Along with providing viable temporary employment for people in our area, it will also provide long-term revenue for the town and the potential for more projects like this one in the future. pedestrian crosswalks. Over the years, as we were growing, we sadly were witness to pedestrian fatalities in the town. Some of these fatalities were due to the lack of safe places to cross our roads and highways, or the lack of properly placed traffic signals or pedestrian and driver signage. We all know that one fatality is one too many. Our mayor and board of aldermen worked closely with the NC Department of Transportation and took the necessary steps to come up with safer places for our pedestrians to cross and for motorists to be more aware of pedestrians. We now have several new crosswalks in place with the proper push buttons and signals, as well as lines painted on the roadways. Since the inception of these crosswalks, we are happy to report that we have had no recent pedestrian fatalities. One last thing to touch on before we close this down is how the COVID-19 has affected us. We have been blessed to be on the lower end of the spectrum as far as the spread of the virus goes. We took very early precautionary measures at the very beginning of the pandemic to try to ensure that our residents were as safe as they could be by shortening our hours for public presence in our town hall and its offices, closing board meetings to the public, closing our recreation and senior centers to the public, performing daily temperature checks on all employees, closing off all outdoor recreation areas, and by keeping our residents up to date with the latest information pertaining to the virus, such as testing sites, food pantries, and government resources, by way of our social media accounts and our main website. While we most likely did not see a lot of closures as far as businesses go, we did have to deal with the shortening of operating hours and the presence of no indoor dining for some of our sit-down restaurants. This in turn did affect some residents who lost wages during the beginning stages. We continue to be a meal pickup site for school lunches at our recreation center on Root Street for families of school-age children affected by the current remote learning situation, and we are a site for the upcoming one-stop voting starting on the 15th of this month. We are starting to see things come back to life more and more each day and continue to strive to follow all guidelines set forth by the authorities and keep our residents as safe as possible. Our priorities will continue to remain constant with our economic growth and development, as well as maintaining the quality of life and the safety of our residents throughout this pandemic that has plagued us all for far too long. In closing, I could and would, if you would let me, stand here and brag all day about the town of Spring Lake. However, I don't want to bore any of you any longer, and I know you would all like the chance to brag about your towns too. So once again, thank you so very much for hosting this great event and inviting us to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Aziz, for bringing us those comments on behalf of Spring Lake. Thank you to all of the presenters for such informative presentations. There are a couple of questions coming in, so while we're gathering those up, I'd like to invite Ms. Christine Michaels, the President and CEO, for her to give a few closing remarks before we go to our questions and answers.
Thank you, Brian, and thank you to all of you who were able to participate today. We really appreciate these annual updates, and especially this year has been so challenging for all of you. We appreciate your dedication to public service and those of your colleagues to help get us through this. It's something we rely on you to do, and I think you have all in your roles really stepped up to lead us through this. As some of you know, I'm leaving my role as president and CEO of the Chamber this Friday. I'm heading to Tennessee to the Oak Ridge Chamber, but I leave behind some very dear friends, some great memories, and a very strong chamber. And I think the key to that strength is really being engaged. In the past 3.5 years, our team at the Chamber has worked hard to become more diverse, more vibrant, and more relevant. And I think we achieved that goal, although we're never going to stop trying to be more than we are. And while our members might know of the things that the Chamber does, they might not be aware of our community involvement, working with many of the folks that you just heard speak today. We serve on the Tourism Advisory Board to put back bed tax dollars into local events. We're also on the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization's Advisory Board, giving input into much-needed local roadway and transportation projects. We worked for a year to craft rewrites to the City of Fayetteville's Unified Development Ordinance, the UDO, to make it easier for smaller lots to be redeveloped and tightening up language to clarify development expectations overall. I also held positions on the Parking and Urban Design Study Task Forces to put in place ideas for downtown's future. Under the direction of the Fayetteville Cumberland Economic Development Corporation, we joined with other agencies to develop a joint branding effort to unify the message we send out about the area. We enjoy partnerships with all our educational institutions, working with Fayetteville Tech, Methodist University, FSU, and Campbell, all chamber members, through internships, support of their curriculum and sports programs, special events, and projects. Our Cumberland County school system is a key factor in our future workforce, and we are privileged to have their superintendent as an ex officio member of our board. We are also a training location for NC Works program participants, enabling those entering and re-entering the workforce to get on-the-job experience. Having the largest military installation in our backyard has been such a blessing, and our Military Affairs Council enjoys an amazing relationship with Fort Bragg. Its garrison and all its commands work with us to broaden the supportive relationship the community enjoys with the post, and we have been able to introduce its soldiers to the Fayetteville, Cumberland County area and all it has to offer. In return, we have been able to introduce our businesses to those commands and show them how they can do business with Fort Bragg and the military. We work with many groups such as the NC Defense Association and the NC Military Business Center, which the Chamber is proud to have created so many years ago to evolve into a statewide organization. We hold an annual Spouses in Military Conference and participate in the Convention and Visitors Bureau's annual Heroes Homecoming celebration. We also work with first responders. You've heard the kudos go out today to our first responders and public health personnel. We honor them each year with our Valor Awards, and I was thrilled to bring that event to this chamber. The Health Department, Cape Fear Valley Health System, and those working on the new Fire Training Center will be honored tomorrow, along with law enforcement officers, firefighters, and paramedics and EMTs who risk their lives every day to save ours. Our media partners help us spread the word about these and other events and give back to the community which supports them. We serve as a business advocate, monitoring legislation and informing our members of actions which will impact them. We have spoken at local hearings right here in this room, written letters of support and opposition, and joined with other groups to take a stand on issues. With the Longleaf Pine Realtors and the Home Builders and Contractors Association, we have educated the public on our local candidates, hosting forums and other events to meet our elected officials. And with the Arts Council, we held a reception for newly elected officials last year, which we plan to make an annual occurrence. All of this is enabled by a committed staff, enthusiastic volunteers, and a guiding board of directors who set our plan of work, and together we carry it out. There are countless of other partners at the state, local, and federal levels, and I hope they know how much we appreciate them. Yes, the Chamber offers networking, training, marketing, exposure to new clients and customers, and many other things you would expect, and we will continue to do so. We will be taking on the Building Business Rally event started by PwC to open up contracting opportunities to local businesses. We co-hosted training programs with the Small Business Development Center and the Small Business Technical Development Center. We hosted the Brian Hamilton Foundation's Inmates to Entrepreneurs program and are now offering a financial literacy course free of charge through a grant from the City of Fayetteville. But your chamber is so much more. It has been here for 121 years, and it will remain the stalwart advocate for community and quality of life. So thank you all. It's been a privilege to be here, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you very much, Christine, for those remarks and for all you've done for the chamber so that you're leaving it strong and vibrant as we continue on to serve our community. So we did have a couple of questions come in, and what we will do is we'll go in the same order that we presented. And so the questions that we would like for you to answer are, the first one is, what is the single greatest lesson that you have learned during the pandemic? And then as a follow-up, a lot of these focusing on the pandemic is no surprise, is how do you see all of our communities continuing to work together, given particularly the restrictions and some of the things that we've had to deal with during the pandemic? So first, Chairman Fairclough.
Thank you, Brian, my former neighbor. These questions were not given to us in advance, so we're supposed to know these answers. And I've written down a couple of little thoughts here, so let me get my cheaters on. What is the greatest lesson I've learned in the past year about this community? And I will have to say that underestimating the strength, courage, adaptability, and resourcefulness of the people of Cumberland County was something that was shouldn't have been a surprise to me, but it was. I confess that I underestimated what the people of Cumberland County can really do when they have to step up, and we've had to step up in the past 9 months to a year. Hurricanes. If you go back 4 years, multiple hurricanes, multiple floods, and now a pandemic. So I salute the people of Cumberland County for the sheer fortitude that they have put forward as they have stepped up to meet all challenges that have come their way. And our motto should be, we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive, and that's what we do in Cumberland County. The second question was how we could work together for a better future. And I think that probably is addressed specifically here to the people that are represented, the various municipalities and the county and any local government. The first thing we've got to do is keep the lines of communication open. I know that through this pandemic, the mayor and I have become text buddies, and we have each other on the quick dial. So if there's anything coming up with the county that can benefit or that it may affect the city, he knows that I'm right there for him, and I think vice versa. So that extends out to, as Mayor Warner alluded, we do have a mayor's coalition, and I'm an ex officio member of that. So the mayors get together every quarter. So whatever's going on in Cumberland County is pretty much a topic that all of us can share. Second thing we have to do is to avoid turf battles. There are many things that if we start crossing over into each other's lanes, it can cause confusion. Particularly at the county level, most of the money comes to the county already spent by the state. It's state money, and I always say that if the people in Raleigh could do everything from Raleigh, there would be no need for a county. It just happens that they can't do everything from Raleigh, so they delegate so many state obligations to the county that we're pretty much tied up with things that we have to do. They are state mandated services. And some of the local money that we can have access to, we try to do things that will benefit our community. So we have a big job to do in Cumberland County, and we try not to get into the business of the other municipalities unless they need us. If they need us, we're right there. But as far as moving forward, we have an election coming up, and the cities have one every 2 years. So the first thing these new people have got to learn as they come on is how to work together with the people that they're saddled with. They may not have wanted to be saddled with us, but they are in some cases, and we always love it when they adapt, and we can see it when the lights come on. So keeping an open mind and being able to work with other people for a common goal is the most important thing that elected officials can do. It's a consensus. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not we win and they lose. It's how can we win together. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Chairman Fairclough. And again, we appreciate the willingness of all of these presenters today, not only to give you their prepared remarks, but to take questions as we bring them in, because they really did not have any advance notice on this. Next, Mayor Colvin.
Thank you so much. As relates to the first questions, the single most important lesson we've learned
Yes, sir.
from the
Single
pandemic?
greatest lesson you've learned from the pandemic?
Well, I would say, I think that Colonel Pence hit a lot of it when he made the quote that was it an ounce of sweat prevents a gallon of blood. I think the preparedness has been very important to us to recover during the pandemic. As Commissioner Fairclough alluded to a few years ago, we were hit with hurricanes back-to-back 15, 16 months apart. And we had to learn how to stand up our responses to help our citizens recover. Although we can't control the incident that happens to us, we have control over the response to the incidents. And I think that with the pandemic, we've learned that our responses are better, they were quicker, because we made preparations on the front end, which yielded huge benefits on the back end to help our community get back on their feet.
Okay. And the second question was, through all of this, how do we continue to have all of our communities continue to work together or even grow?
Well, I think that we have to continue to collaborate. I have a great relationship, again, with the chairman, as he said. Particularly during COVID, we kept in constant communication. The public health officials were very responsive. Mike Nagowski texts me, if not every day, at least every other day, the latest stats for the hospital. Dr. Green has been readily available. But early on, I knew the importance of meeting and collaborating and communicating with other mayors, Mayor Warner and Mayor Dobbins in Spring Lake. But I think that we have to continue to connect with each other, to share our issues from our various jurisdictions, and to see how we can come with a unified response, to whether it's recovered from COVID, hurricanes, or our economic situations. We're all tied together and need to operate that way.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mayor Colvin. Next up is Colonel Pence, and you've actually got a third question that's applied only to you, and so we'll start with that one. What is the status of the new shopping center at Freedom Crossing?
The new shopping center at Freedom Crossing, the one that was planned with a movie theater and its other.
I believe that's correct. Yes, sir.
And the stores. We just got an update on that shopping center from AFES, and AFES is actually it's not good news as far as if you want the Freedom Center crossing. It is AFES is it's got because of cash flow problems. It's started a moratorium on building for all of this year for 2021. They've got one project which is a service station. AFES shop up in the new Yarborough complex or the Patriot Point on base, and that'll be the last thing they build for a while because of this. The coronavirus era has been so hard on AFES bottom line, so that is not in their plans for any time soon.
Okay, thank you. So back to the single greatest lesson that you have learned during this pandemic.
That's a good question, and as I thought about this, I went back to that people will accept conditions and measures that are unpopular as long as they know the reason why. There are many events and activities that we've had to limit or fully cancel in Fort Bragg. And I know with our population, the soldiers are specially selected to be selfless servants and to serve and to take direction. But we also saw that from the community when we had to limit the participation of the 4th of July ceremony this year. We didn't get the backlash that we expected. People understood that the safety of everyone was more important than enjoying the event altogether. We've also, for Halloween this year, we're going to have to limit participation to the Halloween event. The senior commander and I will ask that only DOD ID card holders participate on post. We'll keep the event limited to our on-post neighborhoods and conserve as much space as possible on the sidewalks so that family units can maintain 6-foot separation and do one-way trick-or-treating. And the last questions you had about how we come together?
Yes, sir. How can our communities continue to work together?
And that relates to the first two also with as we as leaders in the community have to make the hard decisions that we look forward to working together so that we're all on the same page. There's nothing worse than trying to inflict harsh standards on an area when everybody in the neighborhood isn't doing the same thing. So it's helpful when everybody helps to keep us all safe and listen to and put into practice the measures that are going to have the most benefit for the community.
Okay. Thank you very much, Colonel Pence.
Thanks.
Mayor Warner.
I think the answer to the first question is real easy for Hope Mills, and it's easy for me because having been mayor through some tragic times and some events that have made us not only plan, but to be prepared. And one thing we've learned in Hope Mills is stay calm. We've learned that if we stay calm and if we let our citizens know that we've got this, that we're working to make sure that everything in Hope Mills is going to flow the right way, make sure our infrastructure needs are there, our service needs are there, and most importantly, what we found is a rally. In Hope Mills, it's almost like the team gets together, and we've got communities coming, restaurants coming to feed the fire department, the police department, but we work together very well. So I've just learned even more so that being prepared, being able to cooperate with each other, but most importantly, staying calm and during times of crisis so that they know that we've got it under control. The other question that you ask is how can communities work together? I think we've proven that during this time that we can just use those things that we have been using. We find it very easy now to go to Zoom, go to meetings, all types of virtual things just like today. YouTube has been a great resource for our town hall meetings. But as far as getting our community together and like the Mayor's Coalition, our virtual meetings, that contact, that communication. But I think the other thing that has increased during this time has been the fact that we have more phone numbers, we have more emails, we have more text messages because now we're having to talk to each other since we can't get together. So I think, again, our cooperation and our planning and the community support that we've had has made these times not easy, but it's made it so that we do get through them because we're all in this together.
Thank you, Mayor Warner. Mayor Pro Tem Aziz.
Thank you, sir. I guess the lesson I've learned is kind of the opposite. I think sometimes in life there are things you can prepare for, and what I've learned is you need to adapt to those things. Whenever there's a calamity, there's often also a lot of opportunity, and that's what we've seen in Spring Lake and what I think we've seen in Cumberland County as well. I mean, soon after everything got shut down, no one had any masks, no one had any hand sanitizers, and in Spring Lake, in my local community, and I think probably everywhere, people were out there making their own masks, they were having their own forms of, sanitation. The dining restaurants were turning themselves into drive-through restaurants or delivery restaurants. Movie theaters were turning themselves into drive-in movie theaters. I think there was a lot of innovation, which I found extremely impressive. And I think that as government officials, our primary job is to do whatever we can to try to help those people innovate. And if we can't do that, to try to just get out of their way. But the most important thing is to try to listen to them, see what do you guys need? What can we do to help you adapt? And hopefully, you're able to do that. And I'm sorry, the other question was about cooperation, right?
Yes, sir. How our communities can continue to work together.
Sure. I mean, I think, as I mentioned earlier, all of our communities are linked together. It's not a zero-sum game. What helps one is going to help all of us. With the old saying that a rising tide lifts all ships. I think that's true in this situation as well. I think cooperation is very important, and I think keeping the lines of communication open is very important. As long as we know what other people are going through and we know what kind of things they need, I think a lot of times you learn there might be something you can do to fill in a gap that someone else has. Someone else might need something and you might be able to help them. You might need something, they might be able to help you. So I would say keeping the lines of communication open and cooperating with people in our local community and in surrounding communities is probably the way to go.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem Aziz. So this concludes our program for the afternoon. Again, we'd like to say a huge thank you to all of those leaders who joined us for this presentation, not only for the presentations and questions and answers this evening, but for all that you do to serve our communities and for all the people that you represent in your organizations and how they serve our communities. We would like to thank our presenting sponsors, Cape Fear Valley Health System and NC Counts Coalition. Huge thank you to the City of Fayetteville for allowing us to be here today, and can't express enough how much we appreciate the IT and the production crew that has helped us to film this. Thank you to the Fayetteville, Cumberland Convention and Visitors Bureau. We would also like to thank our 2020 media partners, Array Publishing and Marketing, Beasley Media Group, Cumulus Broadcasting, the Fayetteville Observer, Up and Coming Weekly, WCKB Radio, and then the 2020 annual sponsors, Caldwell Banker Advantage, H&H Homes, and Jerome Scott, the Insurance Guy. Thank you again to all of you for joining us for this presentation, and have a great day.